So the Samsung A series is Samsung's affordable line of smartphones, which offer you much of what the Samsung S series offer in a more affordable package with a few trade-offs. We were really happy with the Samsung A52 device that we purchased in 2021. It's actually been a series of videos here on the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel that is one of our most popular to date. So in 2022 we decided to follow up with the Samsung Galaxy A53. This is the long-term review of the Samsung Galaxy A53 after around about 8 months of continuous use as a secondary device and a few weeks of use as a primary smartphone. Right then, so the Samsung Galaxy A53. Unlike last year, there's no choice of chipset. You don't get to choose between a Qualcomm Snapdragon chipset and an Samsung Exynos one. And the chipset in use on the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is the Samsung Exynos 1280. That's a 5nm chipset which features an integrated graphics unit as well as an Octa core chipset and all the usual connectivity options. This is a device that takes 2 physical SIM cards or 1 physical SIM card and a memory card, a micro SD card. I've been mainly using this with a micro SD card and 1 nano SIM. Sadly, there's no eSIM connectivity options here, but that's not unexpected in the device of this price range. If you are looking for a device with eSIM capabilities in this price range, check out the Google Pixel 6a, which we already have a series of videos of here on the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel, and we'll have our long-term review published soon as well. The Samsung Galaxy A53 5G has a relatively large AMOLED display, which in this case is a 6.5-inch one. That's full high definition. It's OLED, so you get nice saturated colours and nice dimness when needed. And it's bright enough to use in direct sunlight, even in places as far south as Italy, as I experienced on a recent trip. And that display doesn't stop there. The spec sheet also tells us that it's a 120Hz refresh rate display. This is really impressive for a device in this price range, and it gives you that extra buttery smoothness of interacting with a screen that moves fast in applications and services that do support it. So that 120Hz display may be great in some games and other services, but in other apps, such as the Twitter one, it may not always work. That display is really lovely. It's the main thing you interact with in the smartphone. And in terms of physics and industrial design, it has relatively slim bezels, even slimmer than what we saw last year on the Samsung Galaxy A52 5G. As with the Samsung A52 5G, there's a notch or cutout for the selfie camera in the top middle of the screen. That's similar in terms of design to what we've seen from other higher-end Samsung devices, such as the S20 FE and the S21 FE. And I have to say, the selfie camera is pretty good at 32 megapixels in terms of capability. It takes decent shots with wide dynamic range and is capable of recording pretty decent video at 4K at 30 frames per second, which is more than a lot of competition in this price category can offer. Speaking of cameras, on the back, the camera module is an integral part of the plastic, or some would call it polycarbonate, back of the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. It doesn't stick out as much as other modules we've seen on other smartphones. It gently curves into the module, which is quite pleasant to hold when you're holding the phone without a case on it. But as usual, we always recommend having a case on your smartphones, and we even have a few reviews of cases for the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Check those out if you have time to. Anyway, the cameras on the back of the Samsung A53 5G are a quad setup of cameras. The main camera there is a 64 megapixel module which has optical image stabilization. This helps you reduce noise in low light conditions as well as produce nice dynamic range pictures when conditions require it. Obviously, Samsung's OneUI software and the camera app specifically will help you with the AI introduction and triggering, as well as plenty of manual options there. The ultra-wide camera in this case is a 12 megapixel one. Sadly, the overall color and dynamic range from that camera isn't as good as the main one, but it still takes decent pictures in good lighting conditions. The noise is quite noticeable in low light conditions. The other pair of cameras are two that I personally haven't noticeably used and don't think they're of much value apart from putting numbers into a spec sheet. There's a 5 megapixel fixed focus macro camera, and there's a 5 megapixel depth sensor, which allegedly makes your portrait shots even better. Overall, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G cameras are very, very good. Plus, they may not be at the level of the Google Pixel 6a in terms of ease of use and point and shoot. They are a very capable set of cameras, and once you train yourself to use the camera setup, you'll be able to get decent family pictures as well as pictures of your pets and trips very, very well with this camera, plus it not being flagship level of the Samsung S series. The industrial design of the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is slightly renewed compared to the A52 5G. There's a little bit of a harsher finish in terms of the more squared edges across the device, but Samsung have still managed to fit a 5000 mAh battery in the casing, which is really, really impressive. In my experience, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, even whilst travelling, lasted well over a day of heavy use, and that was including streaming YouTube videos whilst sitting on a train or a plane. I was really impressed by how well the A53 battery lasted. Samsung have included what they call super fast charging. That's 25 watt fast charging for a smartphone. It is a good start, it's better than what we've seen in the past from Samsung, but sadly its naming and its marketing term is nowhere near what we see from the competition in this price range. Devices such as the Honor 70 offer 66 watt fast charging, whereas Samsung have stuck to their 25 watt fast charging, which is good to top you up around about a third of the battery in half an hour from almost flat, and to a full charge in 1.5 hours. Plus you have the option of wired charging. Sadly there's no wirelessly charging on the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Unlike the Samsung S21 FE or the Samsung S20 FE, the Samsung A series seems to have done away with wireless charging, which is quite acceptable in this price range. What I have noticed is that the battery life actually does improve if you switch off the 120Hz refresh on the display, all the way down to 60Hz, which to some people may not be noticeable and will extend your battery even more. So bear that in mind. Yeah, there's a bit of a trade-off there between the really fast refresh rate on the screen and maybe having a little bit of a slower refresh rate on the screen, but better battery life. Make your choices wisely. Fight. Sadly, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does not have a headphone jack. It doesn't have a courage port, which means you'll have to make do with wireless earbuds. Luckily, the Samsung A53 5G does have Bluetooth 5, so most low-energy Bluetooth devices will work well. And I've noticed very little lag between connecting the Samsung A53 5G with my Bose noise-cancelling 700 headphones, as well as a series of other wireless earbuds from companies like Hollyhi, and the Samsung A53 5G paired very, very well with the Samsung Galaxy Buds Live, which we reviewed recently here on the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel as well. So in terms of media consumption, whether streaming video, listening to audiobooks and podcasts, the Samsung A53 5G did very well. Where it was a bit disappointing was the sound output of the speakers on the phone itself. Whilst good enough to maybe listen to a podcast or some music in the shower in a hotel room, there lacks a bit of all-roundedness and errs on the side of bassy as opposed to tinny, which means that some content may be a bit distorted when listening directly from the earphones. In terms of gaming, I've played Call of Duty Mobile on the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G quite a lot. It was quite pleasant to do so whilst sitting on a sofa, and battery life did very well. I was able to play quite a few Battle Royale sessions without noticing sudden drop in battery life, as I have seen on other devices. Now, whilst the chipset on the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is an Exynos 1280, one of the important things to bear in mind is that Samsung's own Android distribution, OneUI, in this case OneUI 5, is running on Android 13. It didn't take long for Samsung to update this device from Android 12 to Android 13 after Google released its own version of the operating system. The Samsung A53 5G is not as fast as, for example, the Samsung S21 5G in terms of its security updates, but it's still around about a month after Google releases their security updates. The Samsung A53 5G gets that, as well as updates to all the inbuilt Samsung apps, which sometimes duplicate Google ones but are of value in of themselves. I would say the only one that beats it is Google's own Pixel 6a, so bear that in mind if security is important to you. In terms of security, you also have Knox, Samsung's own security setup with dedicated chipsets for storing biometrics. The Samsung A53 5G can be unlocked not only using pins, but also by using Face Unlock with that 32 megapixel camera at the front. But the securest way, in my view, is to use the fingerprint scanner, which is underneath that lovely AMOLED screen. It's fast, reliable, and whilst it might not be as fast as fingerprint scanners we've seen from devices such as Honor or Huawei, it's still one of the fastest on the market. Samsung's OneUI, while still looking a little bit cartoonish, has been refined in OneUI 5. It's slightly closer to the Google experience and offers quite a range of apps and services on top of what the basic Android operating system offers. It's quite impressive to see how many AI-driven or AI-capable features there are in the photo editor. The photo editor, which Samsung offers and updates independently of the Google Play Store through the Samsung App Store. It is a pretty fully featured photo editor, which makes me question sometimes why I have a subscription to Adobe Photoshop for the mobile apps. It really is a very capable suite of apps which will allow you to do quite a lot of image manipulation. But since I don't only use Samsung devices, it is still quite useful to have that Adobe subscription. And the expense at the end of the day is worth it because we edit videos such as this review and the many other how-to videos that we do, including ones on the Samsung A53 5G here on the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel. So, to wrap things up, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G with its overall package is a great buy. You get the reliability of a Samsung device in terms of software updates, in terms of the actual build quality, and the worldwide support network if anything were to go wrong. It's relatively affordable and gives you pretty much 90% of what you get on an S-series flagship smartphone from Samsung. There's a few little trade-offs, but I have to say it's really impressive to see so much for relatively so little in terms of money. This is not alone in its own price segment though. For around about £400 sterling, you can get a Google Pixel 6a, you can get an Honor 70, and a whole series of other devices from brands such as Realme and others. Don't jump straight into Samsung, maybe consider other brands, but for a lot of people, jumping straight into Samsung is exactly what they want to do. That Samsung brand, reliability, and in a way the status symbol of having 4 cameras and the Samsung logo is very, very important. And Samsung really do deliver on that. My only disappointment is that the Samsung A52 5G from last year was such a good device that it's difficult for the A53 5G to compete in a more crowded market in that price segment. It's still a very solid option, and a lot of people will trust the Samsung brand and blindly upgrade. But bear in mind, the competition is upping their game, and in some ways overtaking the Samsung A series, in this case for the Samsung A53 5G. Now, by the time this video is edited and published, there will have been an announcement of the availability of the Samsung A54 5G. We will be pre-ordering that. We will be doing a side-by-side comparison between the devices, just as we did with the Samsung A52 5G and the A53 5G. So make sure you're subscribed to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube, you have that notification bell turned on, and you check out our channel regularly to see more videos about not only Samsung devices, but any other smartphones, consumer electronics, gadgets, and anything we think makes the travel experience better. Anyway, for now, thanks for watching and goodbye from us.